Hi guys, Totallydubbed here, and today I'm going to be doing a video comparison. I was very much intrigued to see how Logitech's cameras have fared over the years, and furthermore how their latest ones actually compare. The ones I've actually got are the StreamCam and the C922 Pro, which are deemed as some of the best webcams on the market. Now, just to throw one into the mix, I've got the C615. That is my old school webcam that I've owned for pretty much around 8 years or so. Now here I want to see the progression into how the technology has moved on, and furthermore to see if these webcams, or shall I say streaming cameras, are actually worth your money. Now, if you're interested in purchasing these, the links in the description below from locally will take you to your localized Amazon store. So without further ado, let's get into this comparison. Now, first off, it's the actual build quality and design. Now, the C615, the old school one, is really tiny and quite small. And to be quite honest, is the one that's actually very easy to put in any situation. So be it on your desk or at the top of your monitor. Now, moving on to the C922 Pro, it's quite elongated, and I know webcams like this very much existed. Back in the C615 generation, there was one as well that was relatively long and had dual microphone layout or something like that. Anyway, the later model now is somewhat similar to that design. It's still relatively flat, so therefore it won't be a problem top of your monitor or even on your desk itself, but it is a little bit elongated and therefore will take up a little bit more space than the C615. Moving on, we've got the bulky StreamCam. Now, the StreamCam, in my opinion, is overly large. Now, there are reasons behind this, from the sensor and to how it operates, but on the whole, I felt that it was a little bit too large. Placing it on top of my monitor, it wouldn't fit properly. By that I mean, if I put the monitor at its highest position, the webcam wouldn't fit. So therefore, I had to really reside on leaving it on my desk if I wanted to use it on a regular basis when it comes to streaming or gaming or having any sort of footage with a webcam there. Again, same when it came to productivity, and when I was doing, let's say, conference calls, I found it a little bit awkward that I had to bring my monitor all the way at its lowest point and therefore wasn't ergonomically placed specifically for how I sit in terms of posture. So in terms of this, in terms of build quality, or should I say more of the design of it, I really much like the older generation style. So things have moved on, but in my opinion, not for the best. Next up comes connectivity. Now this might seem very, very trivial, but the C615 and the C922 Pro connect over USB Type-A, which is pretty universal and can be connected in pretty much any sort of scenario. The StreamCam, however, resides to a USB Type-C port only. Now, what I find quite disappointing here is that within the package, you don't get a USB Type-C to USB Type-A converter. And for me, that is somewhat of a fundamental flaw, specifically when it comes to desktop computers. I know my older motherboard, which was perfectly fine when it came to gaming and when therefore streaming, didn't have a USB Type-C output. Now modern day laptops and modern day PCs and motherboards do have USB Type-C, which is great to see. But I wouldn't have just gone for USB Type-C only. I would have gone for USB Type-A as well. There might be some reasons behind this, be it from the actual video resolution to the frame rate and all that stuff, but in my opinion, it would have been nice to at least had an adapter within the box. Something that I found a little bit of an oversight from Logitech. Now the C615 had a connector, kind of like a extender, which came included, and I really like this because not only does this appeal for laptop users, but therefore can be used in a desktop scenario as well. Now the C922 Pro doesn't have this extension. It has a one long cable, which is great, but then when it comes to laptop users, you might find yourself a bit with too much cable at your disposal. And now the most important part is actually the video quality. So right now, everything you can hear and you can see is coming directly from my RX100. In case you're wondering why the audio changed there, it's simply because I use a H1N audio recorder for my video, so that it has a little bit less echo. But to make it a fair comparison, I'm using the built-in microphone from my RX100. Now, the reason I'm using my RX100 in this comparison is just to give you an idea of how a more suited, dedicated camera, let's say, does in terms of handling low light or bright light, or indeed in terms of the focus. So with my test, I'm also going to do autofocus, which I know for a fact that my RX100 somewhat struggles with because it keeps a certain focus, but now we're going to see how that actually compares with the webcams. So here is the first test, and it's the Logitech StreamCam. Now the lighting in my room is pretty bright, and I've got the StreamCam pointing at me pretty much center of my monitor and my desk. Now furthermore, I will say that the audio is coming directly from the StreamCam. Now I will expect you, if you are a more professional streamer or someone's gaming more seriously, to actually have a dedicated audio setup. But for the sake of this comparison, I'm going to be using the built-in audio of all the webcams and of course the camera. Now in this test, it's also worth bearing in mind that it's recording at 1080p 30 FPS. It's quite interesting because I actually got a little pop-up saying that you need to connect it up to a USB 3.0 hub or a USB 3.0 port, shall I say. It's quite interesting to say here because this is kind of alluding to what I was talking about before in my USB Type-C, that you might come into complications if you're not connected in the right way. Now this recording is being recorded via the Logitech Capture software, shall I say, that is included with the webcam, specifically the StreamCam and the C922 Pro, whilst the C615 will be used via the default camera recording software via Windows. Now, one thing I do want to mention is it has got a lot of different options. So for example, I can frame it and zoom in and all that stuff. That's pretty cool and it's all nice to see. You've got autofocus and things. There's loads of different features, and as it's not a dedicated review of the camera itself, I'm not going to dive too much into it. Now I'm going to go with the autofocus test. So you can see I put my hand there. It does pick it up relatively quickly, and if I take it away, it does adjust pretty quickly as well. And in comparison to what you just saw with the StreamCam, now this is in pretty low light conditions. This would be a bit darker than what I would normally game at the dead of night. I've got a little light behind my monitor and I've got my main lamp a little bit on a lower setting. It's pretty dark, and yet despite that, mainly because of the glow of my screen, it's actually picking up pretty well. You can see a little bit of noise in the background over here, and you can see when I move my hand, it's a little bit harder to deal with in comparison to when it was really bright. If I put my hand forwards, you can see it focuses and there's quite a lot of dark around behind it, and in terms of focusing, it does take a little bit of extra time in terms of focusing because of the lighting conditions. But on the whole, the StreamCam does a really good job in terms of low light, at least in my opinion, and in terms of bright light conditions, specifically when it comes to autofocusing, which might be something that you might be interested in. Now next up is the Logitech C922 Pro. So you'll be able to see straight away that the image quality is very much different from the StreamCam. So first off, as I mentioned before, I've got the lights pretty well ramped up to the maximum. I've got the camera centered right above my screen, and it's centered in terms of my desk. Furthermore, the built-in microphone is what you'll be able to hear right now, directly coming from the webcam, again just to give it a fair comparison. Through the Logitech Capture software, I've got pretty much all the auto settings, so auto exposure, auto brightness and all that stuff, and it's also got priority as exposure as well. It's recording as full HD, and I forgot to say that, but the StreamCam is also recording at full HD as well. This is 30 FPS, it's limited to 30 FPS anyway, so it shouldn't make a difference over here. So what you will notice is that there's a lot of white on this side of my face, and that's because that's where my lamp is. Now it is a bright and it is a little bit uncomfortably bright, but that doesn't mean that the camera shouldn't deal with that exposure and deal with it properly. The StreamCam did it really well, whilst the C922 just somewhat struggles a little bit, and it can come across in terms of the video. You will also notice in the background it's a little bit over bloated in terms of the wardrobe, and sort of the contrast between me and, let's say, the back of that PC over there, it looks a little bit off. So it is definitely a kind of downgrade over or versus the StreamCam. Now, very much like the StreamCam, we've got the low light test. Again, lights are dimmed down to pretty much exactly as it was with the StreamCam, and I'm comparing it now with the C922 Pro. So here you can see the C922 Pro actually does a pretty good job in low light performance, and how it deals with the actual overall color tone, rather than kind of giving it a kind of soft tone and like a little bit of like a filter, it actually does pretty well. Now in terms of the autofocus as well, how it deals with it, it's actually decent. Again, the StreamCam does a little bit of a better job, and I forgot to mention this as well in my other test when it was brighter, but it does exactly the same in terms of performance in its low light and bright light condition. And again, it's just a little bit slower, ever so slightly slower than the StreamCam. So ultimately, it's not going to really make any difference whatsoever in that respect. Now, what I will like to point out is over here, there's a little bit of a noise. You can see around my wardrobe over here, at least I can see it on my screen. So you should be able to see this in this video. And on the computer over here, it's somewhat lost. You can't see the computer or the screen, and you can't differentiate in terms of what is on that desk. So anyway, worth pointing that in mind in terms of a comparison. And out of the three cameras, the webcams that is, we've got the C615, the old school one. So right now I've got everything ramped up just like before. Got the camera positioned at the top of my monitor and it's recording me straight away, and also it's all built-in mic as well. You can see that the difference in technology over the years and how it's progressed. This was an HD 1080p camera as well, so it's actually not that bad. Back in the days it's pretty good. You will see it is somewhat struggling sometimes when I move my hands. Sometimes the auto exposure goes all over the shop. Now in terms of the autofocus, it's actually surprisingly good, very fast, and I think the autofocus is actually the best out of the bunch. But it's a little bit too good. By that I mean if there is changements of light, and I'm not sure if it's going to pick it up, but it does somewhat struggle, and specifically when there's sunlight and there's sunlight that beams through and goes away, just like you saw there, it somewhat struggles. So I've had this problem from the very start, but of course this is a very old camera that we're talking about here. And now we get onto the low light quality. So you can see there's a lot of image noise, be it from my face or in the background, and the C615 is somewhat struggling. On the plus side, I will say in terms of the overall color accuracy rather than the actual exposure, it actually does a pretty good job. Now in terms of exposure, you can see in terms of my face over here, it's a little bit overblown from my monitor, whilst everywhere else on my room is pretty dark, and therefore it's kind of compensating that with the background and in my face, whereas the other cameras did a little bit of a better job in their low light performance. But I will say the C615, given its age, is actually pretty impressive, and specifically over here I really do like actually its audio quality. Again, it's not amazing, don't get me wrong, but for something that's so old, it's pretty ahead of its time, and that's quite nice to see. So there we have it. That's my comparison between the three webcams and a little bit of a reference to the RX100 as well. I'll be intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comments below, but in my subjective opinion, I think the C922 Pro is the best bang for performance, at least from the webcams I've tried. I think that it does a decent job. Yes, it does overblow an image when it's very bright, and it does suffer from a little bit of noise when it's very dark. But if you take the midpoint between this, which is something that I didn't do in terms of the extremes I took, because I wanted to do kind of a comparison, then the C922 Pro might be actually a pretty good bet. Specifically actually because of its design, means that it's a little bit more versatile than the StreamCam. Now, is that to say that you should completely avoid the StreamCam? Absolutely not. It's got the best image and actually somewhat of the best audio quality as well. Now again, I can't suspect people who are going to be taking more professionally or seriously to be using the built-in audio of the webcams, period. So in terms of the actual video quality, it is the better of the bunch, but it is more expensive as well. So therefore it's something that you should only consider if you're really going to be taking it a little bit more seriously, and furthermore if you've actually got the space for it. Now there are a whole host of other functionalities and features that I haven't actually explored. So for example, the StreamCam actually has image stabilization, so I haven't tested it versus let's say a GoPro, and I don't really know where the use case would be that for, other than that if you're going to be taking it to an event and like showcasing a product over a live stream. It's also got a vertical tilt function so it can get portrait mode. Again, that's going to be only useful if, for example, you use Facebook Live. So these functionalities are somewhat redundant when it comes to an actual streamer. For me, a streamer is someone who's going to be in front of their computer and therefore having it positioned. In this case, the StreamCam is pretty chunky and it does take quite a bit of space. But if you can get over that and you can get over its price tag, in comparison to obviously what you can get in terms of like the C922 Pro or other webcams or streaming cameras out there, then it is the best quality out there, at least from my tests that I've done. And before going, I will want to shout out my C615 old school camera over here, because that webcam actually stood the test of time. It's not exactly shambolic in terms of performance, and yet it isn't that great either. So you can see where technology has moved on. I do like its build quality though. It's really thin and really small, and therefore it doesn't take much space on top of your monitor or on your desk. And in that respect, the C615 is definitely the clear winner for me in that perspective. So I just wanted to throw it in there because I had it spare, and it's the webcam that I've been using for almost a decade. So I just thought to put it in. So anyway, let me know in the comments below what you think. As I said before, like, subscribe, and favorite and share. It always helps the channel grow and continues kind of my motivation to provide these unbiased, unpaid, independent videos, or in this case, a comparison. So anyway, all right, guys, I'm not going to take any more of your time. Totally dubbed out. Bye-bye.